39-year-old former West Virginia head coach now, Darian DeVries, is heading to Indiana to take over for Mike Woodson. DeVries, who led the Mountaineers to a 19-13 record, exceeding expectations, going through injuries with his son Tucker, who was limited to 8 games, among other forms of both injury and adversity. He had the Mountaineers right near the NCAA tournament after taking Drake to 3 NCAA tournaments in 4 years. He has 7 years of head coaching experience. You're talking about 3, what really should have been 4 NCAA tournaments. Now he takes a job at Indiana University. This is a guy who had 17 years on the bench with Dana Altman and Greg McDermott at Creighton. Jeff Goodman broke this story. Jeff, why did Scott Dolson hire Darian DeVries?
Well, I think a lot of Indiana fans were kind of scratching their heads here. How did it fall this far? They wondered over the last few weeks. And obviously Dolson, shot for the stars at first, right? Brad Stevens gave me a comment fairly early on saying he wasn't interested. Dusty May had already been at Michigan for a year, so he wasn't leaving. And I honestly think he fits better at Michigan than Indiana anyway. They tried TJ Otzelberger. He's happy at Iowa State, loves his AD, loves that situation. He's not going anywhere. They weren't going to mess with Chris Beard and Will Wade because of the baggage, whether it's right or wrong, whether it's accurate or not. There is still baggage and a perception with both of those guys, so they didn't go that route. So then it gets down to, again, Buzz Williams, which I think I've made my position fairly clear on, Mick Cronin and his hefty buyout. Mark Byington had a big buyout as well at Vandy. So then you're getting down to, Ben McCullum, who was in the mix for weeks. They met with him a couple times. Darian DeVries was in there as well. Greg McDermott, they felt like 60 years old, probably wasn't the right guy at this time. They wanted to get somebody in there that could maybe stick around for more than 3-4 years. So they went with McDermott's kind of protege, one of the guys on his coaching tree. And Darian DeVries was a longtime assistant, guys, who finally got his opportunity at Drake, took advantage, went to the tournament 3 times in 6 years, gets a West Virginia job, and did an unbelievable job this year. I know people are going to be like, well, they didn't get in, they got screwed, whatever. If you look at the talent on that team, remember, Tucker DeVries he only played 8 games, and then he shut it down with a shoulder injury. They had like 2 really good, 2 players that were like legitimate high major talents that could play right now. Small and Hansberry. Those were their 2 guys. He did an incredible job coaching. And that's the big thing you hear from him is really, really good ball coach, high character, works his ass off. Those are kind of the 3 things. Does he have a dynamic personality? No, he does not. But when I talked to Scott Dolson about this, 5-6 weeks ago, that wasn't high atop his list. He wanted a guy that could really coach.
Randolph, your reaction to this hire?
I agree with everything you said. I don't have any. I just, when you hear a lot of noise, people asking about it, Jeff, their question is, you get a promotion and you didn't lead a team to the tournament. And usually that's like the qualifications you need to get a promotion. It's still a promotion. Like, this is still Indiana basketball, right? And you talked about the coaches that didn't get it, but that's a pretty big jump in 1 year, right?
Would you rather hire Ben McCullum, RC? Ben McCullum, who has only been in Division I 1 year. He went to the tournament this year at Drake, but literally he's been 1 year in Division I.
I wouldn't be afraid to hire whoever I thought it is. It's basketball. It's not like whether it's Division I or Division II. I mean, it's that.
You're not winning the press conference.
Right, but you're not winning the press conference
anyway.
You're not winning the press conference right now with this one, with DeVries.
Exactly.
You're not winning it.
None of them.
This isn't the second hire. So
who would you have hired?
But I think
who would you have hired?
I think it's more. I'm okay with the hire. I probably would have went with Ben McCullum. I thought it just made sense because of what the success he's had. But again, it's tomato. They're coming from the same tree. I've been one, and I've said this about Indiana basketball. I remember I was the one that made the comment years ago that I don't think that with the fan base and everything else, it has all the resources, everything, but coaches don't view the job the way they don't want to deal with that. And it is. It's great. It's a great job. It is. It's not a lot of coaches that want to deal with that. And that's how you end up in a situation. And it could be like Louisville, right? Pat Kelsey wasn't the top choice for them, but it was the right choice. And I think that hopefully, it's the right choice for Indiana. We'll soon find out. But his personality wise, you're right. It's gonna be different. I mean, he's not the, how will he embrace living in the glass? Living in Indiana, that would be the only thing I'd say. He seems to be, pretty buttoned up. He's going to work his tail off. He's going to win. He's going to coach. He's going to do all those things. I'm not worried about that.
If he's got money, right? If he's got NIL and revenue sharing,
which he does.
Yeah, I mean, well, they'll have it. Obviously, they had a lot of money this year. They had like $5.2 million this year, but a lot of that was because of Mike Woodson, because of who Mike Woodson is in the community. That's a big part of why they had so much money this year. They'll have it in revenue sharing when it goes in next year. That's not the issue. I think as long as he can assemble a staff, can he bring Chester Frazier with him, who was at Illinois before? Tom Ostrom was at Indiana before with Archie Miller. Does he come with him? I don't know the answers to these questions yet, but he's going to need a staff because the one thing Darian DeVries isn't like, he's not a salesman. He's the furthest thing from a salesman, guys. And I'm not saying you have to be that way in Indiana, but Archie Miller, our good friend here, who was on Field of 68 for a year, was not a salesman either. And I think it's really hard if you're not, and you're not winning at a high level. If you win at a high level, nobody gives a shit, right? Nobody cares if you're out in the community. But if it's close and they don't feel like they have a connection with you, it's a lot easier to then pile on and eventually say, you know what, he's not the guy. And as we've seen here, it could take 2 years before they turn on you. I mean,
and that's my question though, Jeff, I guess that's where I'm going with it. Because he is this way, and there's nothing wrong with that, they're not going to give him time. This is Indiana. They're not going to give him time. They're not going to give him a couple of years. They're expecting you to come in there right now and flip it and get it to where they're like Texas in a sense. They feel like they should be Final Fours and national championships. And that's what I'm saying. It's like, and then they want access to him all the time. They're going to want that there.
At least get in the tournament. Let's start there. Let's start with getting in the tournament and winning a game next year. I think if he does that, they'd say, kind of like with Pat Kelsey at Louisville, all right, you know what? He's headed in the right direction. Obviously, he's bringing his son, Tucker, who hopefully will be healthy next year. He's had a few shoulder injuries, but he's a great piece to start with. He's not a star. I don't think you build around him at Indiana, Fana, but I think he's a really good piece that you can add to and people want to play with him. He fits, too, what Indiana couldn't figure out, right? Like Indiana and Woodson couldn't figure out how to put a team together. That's the biggest thing. If Darian DeVries can do that at Indiana with the resources that he'll have, he'll be fine.
Well, also couldn't figure out how to execute late in games, which is not going to be an issue for Darian DeVries, who can scheme.
He'll find some shooters, too.
Yeah, he'll find shooting.
He'll find
defensively, his best teams have been top 35 or so in KenPom defense. His teams are going to guard, and they're going to play the right way. They're going to share the basketball. They're going to run stuff that gets shooters open looks. What a concept. Also plays to a modern style of basketball. Here's the thing. You win in the NIL column. You're Indiana. You win as a brand. You win as a desired TV destination as a program. TV networks still want you on Fox, CBS, NBC. You're Indiana. You don't need to have a coach who is this overly showy advertiser like some of the others in the sport. You know what you need? A coach who knows how to use all of those enhancements and get them channeled into his facility, building a culture and winning basketball games. Because to me, if you win, all that other stuff around you, you'll be embraced regardless of what your personality exactly is. Just win, baby. Just win.